When Mother's Day means celebrating your mom, your wife, maybe even your daughter as a new mom, trust 1-800-Flowers to help you celebrate every important woman in your life. With double blooms from 1-800-Flowers, order 1 dozen roses and get another dozen for free. It's a simple way to give beautifully, with colorful blooms that make Mother's Day feel meaningful. For every mom you're celebrating, order with confidence and get double blooms at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
A medical mystery hits a little too close to home and may be headed to your neighborhood soon. And then we take a look at a bizarre story that'll have you asking the question, should even the cruel be saved from dark paranormal forces? And finally, we take a look at the story of a young boy out walking in the woods one day when he meets a strange girl. But when he realizes that this girl may actually be some sort of forest spirit, is it too late to save his butthole? Today on Dead Rap Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys had a great day too. Hope you guys had an awesome weekend. We got a ton of stuff to cover today. So first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Brian Blackwood. Woohoo, yeah, he's running on into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Jumping around. So excited to be here, and we're excited to have you here, Brian. Brian Blackwood has become a friend of mine over the years from the Ghost conferences. We both go to the Ghost conferences. Myself as a speaker who doesn't have a booth anymore because I just didn't like sitting in one spot. And Brian Blackwood as a published author, and now he does classes on how to become an author. It's really, really cool to know him. We've talked a lot about the show and talked a lot about his books, and just a genuinely nice guy. And he does support Dead Rabbit Radio by giving me free stickers. I've bought multiple copies of his books, too. I haven't finished it yet, and I feel really bad about that. But, Brian, because you support the show so much, that is why you're going to be our captain or pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the merch store or the Patreon, even if you guys aren't published authors, that's fine, too. It really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Let's go ahead and get this episode started, Brian. Before we do get it started, this weekend is going to be our Dead Rabbit Radio movie weekend. We're going to have a movie night this Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and a movie morning on Saturday morning starting at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. There'll be more details in the show notes. If you want to do the movie night, you have to be a Patreon member, either free or paid. You can join us for the movie night, and the movie morning is open for everybody. We just watch short films. You can kind of come and go as you please. We watched it for about 2 hours. Bunch of short movies. I really hope to see you guys there. Okay, Brian, let's go ahead and get this party started. Let's start off. I'm going to toss you... Hey, I got a new vehicle. I just came up with this. Brian, I'm going to go ahead and toss you the reins of the Carpenter Chariot. The Carpenter Chariot. Everyone get aboard this old-timey Roman land vehicle as Brian giddy-ups us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way out to Hood River. We're just walking like 5 feet out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Sound effect forward. I thought I was going to hear wheels. I thought I was going to hear like a Roman guy screaming about gladiator combat. Maybe next time if I remember the vehicle. This was a short trip. I couldn't fit in that many sound effects. Okay, so this is super weird. There's going to be a short one. And I got to be kind of coy with the information I give out because I haven't been authorized to talk about this. The people that I know I haven't asked, hey, can I cover this on the show? And it involves medical stuff, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. But I don't need a ton of detail. I don't think I need to give names or anything like that. A buddy of mine, friend of mine, had a seizure a couple weeks ago. They had to call the ambulance and all that stuff. And she's doing fine. But she's never had a seizure before. She's probably in her mid-30s. Never had a seizure before in her life. Very scary thing, having a seizure. You imagine? I mean, like, I've known a couple dudes with epilepsy in my life. I've never really known anyone to just have a seizure out of the blue. I know that seizures can be triggered through, like, brain trauma. I mean, obviously epilepsy, but then also, like, you have new trauma. Get hit in the head with a brick. or you, what's another thing that can cause? I mean, that'll definitely cause a lot of issues. But there's other things that you can trigger a seizure. But as far as someone who has no brain trauma and no history of seizures to just suddenly start having a seizure, it's alarming. It was alarming for her. It's alarming to me. All of her friends are like, oh my God. Because on the back of your head, you're thinking, man, that's really scary. I'm glad she's okay. But you go, if it can happen out of the blue to someone who's never had a seizure before, could that happen to me? And you kind of start to think like, what if that did happen to me? What if I was at work and someone's like, hey, can you get that Johnson account ready? And I go, yeah, sure, boss. And I'm like starting to, they're supposed to do this assignment. It's like the same way I do homework. I wait till the last minute. It's like, oh, Johnson's here. Oh no, I better start typing this out. Introduction. And as I'm typing up the Johnson account, all of a sudden I'm all, and my eyes are rolling back. You're like, Jason, is this whole thing going to be you making insensitive comments and sounds about seizures? No, not really. But I'm all, my eyes are rolling back in my head. And someone comes in and they're like, Jason Johnson's here. Do you have the account ready? And they see me like twitching on the ground. I'm not faking it. That way I was like, oh no, I don't have time to do this. I accidentally must have hit the delete key. I had the best account presentation ever, boss. Now I'm twitching around on the ground. It's scary to think that you could just have a seizure out of the blue. Well, I've been doing some seizure research because of all this stuff, and it does turn out that it's super rare, but sometimes people do have seizures out of the blue. Generally, they can point to something that would say this is what caused the seizure, as in brain trauma, a tumor growing in your head, some sort of issue, some sort of like ongoing health concern, chronic disease. But apparently sometimes a otherwise healthy adult, this happens to kids too, but I'm only focused on adults right now. Because if it happened to a kid, I'd go, well, maybe that kid has epilepsy and it wasn't diagnosed. When you're talking about someone who's in their mid-30s, you go, well, that's weird. And never had a seizure before. Nope, never. Okay, it's more concerning. I mean, the kid will... Listen, that's not that I'm saying it's okay if kids have seizures. But you know what I mean? Like, if a 10-year-old had a seizure, you'd be like, oh, no. But then here's the thing, it doesn't scare me, right? I'm not 10. I mean, I feel bad for the kid. I'm going to call 911, but it doesn't make me scared. Sometimes adults do have seizures out of the blue with no underlying cause. But what has happened in Hood River County, and maybe a little bit outside the county, but in this general area, my friend, and I didn't know this till after the fact, my friend was actually the fourth adult to have a seizure in this area with zero underlying causes in like the past month and a half. In the past 45, 60 days, 4 adults with zero history of having seizures have had a seizure. That is highly unlikely. The idea of an adult having a seizure just out of the blue is so rare in and of itself. But to have 4 of them in such a short time period, in such a small geographic area, I mean, the population of Hood River County is like 25,000 people. 4 people have had seizures that have never had a seizure before. That I know of. You have to wonder, are other people having seizures that I don't know, or I don't know them as a friend of a friend? Who knows? That is so unusual that it almost, I mean, I can't say it could never happen, that it's impossible, but statistically it shouldn't in such a small area, in such a small time span. What's going on? Like I said, there may be more. We can hypothesize about that, but let's just focus on the 4 we know. It's definitely alarming, right? Because then you start to think, is it an environmental thing? Is there something up here that's different? Something up here that's changed? But when you look at something like this, because it's medical in nature, if you don't know the person, or if you don't know the person through another person, each person would be having their own seizure and not realize that other adults in the area are also having seizures for the first time. And then you branch out, Hood River's right across the river from Washington. Are there seizures happening over there? First time? What about farther south in Oregon? The guy, the 44-year-old dad of 3 who has a seizure as he's driving home, which is, that's terrifying too. The idea of having a seizure. When I was looking stuff up, they said, seizures can be very difficult for people who drive. I have a buddy who cannot drive a car because he has seizures. It's not like every day, but they're often enough that the state wouldn't give him a driver's license. It'd be super dangerous, right? You're driving a car, you have a seizure, you go off the road. When I was looking up stuff about seizures, they also said, I didn't even think about this. This might even be worse. Swimming. Imagine swimming and you have a seizure. I mean, obviously, you're not going to stay afloat. You're going to be all twitching and stuff and sink into the bottom of the river or even the pool. You look in the pool, you're like, yo, where'd Joe go? And someone's like, I think he's having a seizure at the bottom of a pool. And you see a guy like twitching and but he's in the deep end and you're not a strong swimmer. You're like, oh no. You throw the lifesaver, it's like floating 8 feet above him. He's still on the ground. That would be terrifying. I mean, obviously, like walking, having a seizure, losing control of your legs and slamming your head into the ground. That's another thing I'm saying. You wonder, are other people in the area having seizures, but they get misdiagnosed as something else because they get in a car accident or they drown? Imagine if you had a seizure in a bathtub and you drowned. They'll be able to tell you drowned in the autopsy, but I think they'd have to do some pretty hardcore brain stuff to go, oh, he must have been having a seizure when he drowned. That must have been the cause of the drowning versus, oh, he must have just fell asleep in the bathtub and drowned. I wonder, I mean, it might just be these 4 cases. This might just be an unusual cluster. It's not impossible. It's statistically unlikely, very, very rare statistically. But because of the way medical events are reported, and because most of the people would probably just consider they were a one-off event, I wonder if this is happening more in Hood River County. I wonder if it's happening more all over the world. Because if it was just us, you could go, it's some sort of, I would assume it's some sort of environmental change. Something going on locally that's triggering this. But I wanted to do this segment because, not just to make funny seizure noises, but also because I wonder if any of you guys have recently had friends or friends of friends who have had first-time seizures. Maybe even you. Maybe even you just recently had your first seizure. And you're like, oh, a little bit of relaxing Dead Rabbit Radio. Oh, he's only going to talk about horrible true crimes and phantoms from beyond. And then I'm making seizure noises. You're like, ah. Wouldn't that be crazy? Wouldn't that be crazy if a lot of people have been having seizures, but it's not getting reported in the news because it's medical and it's always treated as a one-off thing? But, and here, 4 people in such a small area, super rare. Imagine if it happened twice in your town, and then another listener, they're like, that's interesting because my aunt had a seizure. She's never had one before. It happened a couple weeks ago. Imagine if this was happening all over. That's why I wanted to do this segment, because I want to hear from you guys. And it's possible that no one responds. It's possible people go, no, I haven't had any experience with that. And then we know it's a local thing. But if it happens in other places and you're aware of it, I'd love to see these, I'd love to hear from you guys, see your guys' emails. Because none of the seizures that I know about were covered in the news, because it's a private, personal event. It's medical. So it would come down to community knowledge. One thing that is interesting, not to freak out my friend, I'm not going to tell her this, but again, it's rare. But in 3% of all cases of this, one of the early signs is a seizure. A seizure, even if you've had no history of seizures. And that's Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. The human equivalent, I know there's a few differences, but the human equivalent of mad cow disease. It's a brain degenerative disorder. It's 100% fatal. The question is how long it takes for it to kill you. In 3% of cases of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, seizures are one of the early signs of it because it's a degenerative brain. Your brain basically starts to grow holes in it. It causes rapid dementia. And just last year in 2025, Hood River had 3 cases of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. 2 died of it already. We never got an update on the 3rd person. And at that time, there were a bunch of press releases sent out about that. See, that kind of got into the mainstream, and that was talked about more locally. Because I think they have to put health warnings up for it. A lot of times, humans get Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease by eating tainted wildlife meat, like deer and elk. And they don't know how the people got it. They assume that they must have eaten some infected meat, but generally, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, it's really hard to pinpoint an origin. These 3 people apparently weren't connected to each other. It's not like they all sat down to eat the same elk. So is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease out there? Who knows? So I'm wondering if there are, it could be there's an unfortunate showing of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in this area, which it was just here last year. It tends to take a while for symptoms to show up. It's generally about 7 years between the time you eat the tainted meat to the time that you start presenting symptoms and die. It can be quicker for some. It can be longer for some, but generally it can take 7 years for you to get it and for it to kill you. So that means the people who died in 2025 probably got it in 2018. That's one of the things that makes it so hard to figure out how they got it. Because obviously if a guy was all, like freaking out in bed, you're like, what did you eat? What did you eat? And he's all, Arby's, Arby's. You're like, well, sir, that's your bad for eating at Arby's. We all know. It's nothing but infected flesh there. But the fact is, you'd be like, what did you eat 7 years ago? What did you eat 9 years ago, right? If it's one of those, it could take longer for you. What did you eat 3 years ago? It'd be really, really hard to narrow that down. So crazy. I'm really curious. If you guys start emailing me saying there's been a lot of seizures in your area, that's something totally different. And again, you may be hearing this and being like, oh my God, this is nuts. This is so crazy. I'm having a seizure right now. You're all knocking your iPod off the table. But maybe none of you guys reply. Maybe all of you guys go, no, I haven't had anything with that, which then makes us have to look closer at this county and what could be going on here. But crazy news story. Crazy stuff, spooky stuff. I'm curious to hear if you guys have any recent stories as well. Okay, Brian Blackwood, let's go ahead and toss you the hair hang glider. A very great device to be using during a seizure. Brian, jump off Mount Hood itself and glide us all the way out to a house by the sea. We're flying all the way out. We're going to take a look at the story. It's very short, but it has really interesting ramifications. And again, I'm curious as to what you guys have to say about this. Because, I read all your YouTube comments, read all your emails. Even if I don't respond, I'm reading them. I always enjoy hearing what you guys have to think about this. This is another one that I imagine that I'll have some divided opinions on. We're about to take a look at the story of this young boy. We don't have his real name. We'll call him Philip. He's 10 years old. And he lives in a house next to the sea. That's the sound of the waves crashing against the seawall. And on this particular day, Philip is out for a walk, walking near the seawall. The weather's pretty crummy. Dark gray sky. The sea is rough. Waves happening. Waves making noises. And that is when... Listen, man, I don't set out to do this type of stuff. I just find these stories randomly. And here we go. So, Philip is walking down in his neighborhood. He's walking by the seawall by his house. It's a bad weather day. And that's when he hears a meow, meow, meow. Philip's kind of looking around. He's like, oh, where's that coming from? I mean, he's somewhere on the ground. He's not looking up in the sky. He's all, golly, is that one of them catbirds? He's obviously scanning the ground looking for the source of the meowing. And that's when he sees a cat. A little cat sitting there. Meow. Meow. Philip looks down at the cat. It's cold. It's wet. It has pus coming out of its eyes. It's sick. It's really, really sick, and pus is coming out of his eye. Meow. Meow. Philip goes, oh, look at that little guy. He's not doing too good. Huh. Well, okay, cat. And that's when Philip reaches down, he picks the cat up, and throws the cat over the seawall, and watches it splash into the water below. And then he goes home. Not the cat. unless the cat's a merman, and it's not. Then Philip goes home. Later that night, Philip is sitting at home. You're like, please tell me he gets killed by a serial killer. Well, okay, let me finish the story, because again, this is an interesting one. Later that night, Philip is sitting at home watching television. All of a sudden, he has to go to the bathroom. He's got to drain the main vein. He gets up and he walks into the bathroom. He's only in the bathroom for like a minute. When he comes out, he walks back into the living room, and there's a window that you can see into the outside world. Right? You know how windows work, but he has a window in his living room. And he goes, when I left the bathroom, I was only going to the bathroom for like a minute. As I left the bathroom, I was coming back in the living room. I saw something standing outside the living room window. Now, I don't know if this was the size of a human. This is either kind of menacing or kind of funny. But I don't know if it was the size of a human. What he saw was a cat dressed in a little business suit with a top hat and a cane, standing outside the living room window staring at him. Now, if it was like a 6-foot humanoid cat with a business suit, a top hat, and a cane, pretty alarming, right? You're like, oh, I forgot. My best friend, a furry, is coming over tonight. Come on in, John. But imagine if you saw a cat, like a little, how big are cats usually? Like a foot tall, something like that? When they're sitting down, when they're standing up, they're still a foot tall, actually. They don't get taller when they look like they're taller because the way they arch their bodies. When they sit down, a cat is taller when it sits down, now that I think about it. But you're like, Jason, this man murdered a cat. Quit going off. Tell me about the serial killer who comes in and guts him alive. Well, imagine if you saw a cat sitting outside your bedroom window. It was a normal looking cat, but he had on a suit, a top hat, and he had a cane. Which one would you find more menacing? Like, I'd laugh at the second cat if I saw a cat wearing a top. First, I would just assume someone had dressed their cat up and somehow taught it how to use a cane. But if I saw a 6-foot-tall humanoid-looking cat, obviously my threat level is going to be higher as far as that goes versus just a regular cat wearing a top hat, a suit, and a cane. But whatever the case is, I don't know which size it is. We'll assume it's the bigger one just because that's more alarming. Philip sees this cat wearing, dressed to the nines really, very dapper cat, staring at him. And then the cat murdered him? No. Philip doesn't get murdered. Philip's still alive to this day, but he goes, every so often I think back to that cat who was outside my living room window. It really alarmed him. He goes, I think about it from time to time, and honestly, I've started treating cats a little different. He used the word a little. He's like, just a little differently. I started treating cats a little differently. Instead of throwing them into the sea, I simply threw them into the woods. But he goes, ever since he saw that cat figure outside his window, it's kind of changed the way he deals with cats. He says, I treat them a little differently nowadays. So, that's the story. A man kills a cat, kills a sick cat, and then a cat figure shows up later that night, and it's changed the way he kind of deals with cats now. He says, I treat him, quote unquote, a little differently. But he would like to know what it's about. He posted this online because he goes, I kind of want to know what that thing was. What was that cat figure outside of my window? He posts this on Paranormal Subreddit. He posted this on the Paranormal Subreddit going, oh, yeah, does anyone know what this creature could have been outside of my window? He's kind of looking for advice, like so many people do when they post on the Paranormal Subreddit. All of the responses, there's one or two that weren't this, but the rest of the responses were calling him a monster and a psychopath, a disgusting human being, demonic, he's a demonic person, quote, you deserve every bad thing that ever happens to you, unquote. Here's my question to you. Throwing the cat into the ocean is cruel. Surely, yes. I do think that there are times, please, Jason, I really like your podcast. Don't defend this guy. I'm not going to defend his action. What this guy did was awful. He picked up a sick cat and he threw it over into the ocean. Threw it over the seawall into the sea. It's horrible. He wasn't ordered to do it. It was just like something he did. And all it had was a little bit of pus in his eyes. I mean, sometimes I have pus in my eyes when I wake up. And it's been... We're pus brothers. I'm like, come here, cat. I'm all rubbing his pus on my face. Which one is the sick cat now, Philip? You want to throw us both into the sea? I have feline pus all over my eyes. No, I mean, it's been a long time. You know, when I was in elementary school, I think I had pink eye a couple times. And you'd get pus on your eyes. And, no one ever threw me over the wall. My parents probably wanted to more than once, but, you see a cat. He's not super sick. It's not like the cat was dying of cancer. Again, I'm not saying it would be okay to do it then. He takes the cat, has all these MRI duns, and he goes, well, cat, and guess what? You got bone cancer. You got kitty cat bone cancer. There's only one way to take care of this. I'm not saying it's good, but really what I wanted to talk about when I was telling this story is this. Does this guy deserve help with his paranormal problem? This Reddit post was deleted, and he was banned from Reddit. I get it. He did something horrible. The one or two comments that defended him were like, he was 10. He was 10. What do you expect from an idiotic 10-year-old? Other people are like, well, I was 10 once as well, and I never threw a cat over a wall into the ocean. Yeah, fair enough. But most people were attacking him, and that's fair, right? But does he deserve help from paranormal forces would be my question to you. If somebody does something truly evil, like, let's say you had a guy who, raped and murdered a woman, and he's then thrown in prison. One day you get a phone call from this guy. You don't know who he is, but he calls you up and he goes, hey, listen, I need your help with something. I'm that guy. You probably know who I am. I'm that guy who raped and murdered that woman a couple of years ago, and I've been in prison ever since. But I'm pretty sure my cell is haunted, and the guards aren't taking it seriously. It's really, really spooky here. You're like, Jay, I cannot hang up the phone quick enough on this guy. Okay, yeah, okay, let me come up with a better example. Let me come up with an example you'll actually maybe do. Let's say that you get a phone call. Let's say you get a phone call from a man who stole a bunch of money from an orphanage, and the orphanage went out of business. And so all they put the kids out on the corner and moved everything else away, and the kids were spread to the four winds. But this guy was, like, happy that he got all this money. He didn't care that he stole this money. And, in fact, the law was on his side. They go, well, he didn't technically steal the money. He loaned them the money, and they missed 3 payments, so he took the house back and kicked all the kids out, whatever. Horrible, despicable stuff. And he's free, and he's not raped or murdered anybody. That's on his business card. He goes, greedy businessman. His slogan is, I've never raped or murdered. And people are like, well, I guess we can excuse the greedy businessman part then. He calls you up and he goes, hey, listen, you might know me, I'm that greedy businessman, but you also know my slogan. I haven't done anything too horrible. It turns out that my house is being haunted by the ghosts of these kids. I'm going to assume they're dead orphans, just a guess. But it's really, really freaking me and my family out. The other day, my little girl, she woke up in the middle of the night. There was 30 dripping wet children standing around her bed. And they said, in hell, everything's wet. What? I don't know. I'm making this up off the top of my head. I just trying to think of something spooky. What's spookier than a dripping wet child? They're all dripping wet and they go, in hell, everything's wet. It's not fiery, but endless oceans. And the dark things under the water nibble your toes all night. And then my daughter looked down and all the orphans were missing feet. It's just like floating there like Casper. And she obviously had a hard time going to sleep. She hasn't been doing well in school lately. And also, she's quit the swim team for some weird reason. Will you come to my house and help exorcise these orphan ghosts? Now, in this scenario, you have the ability to do that. You have the knowledge, you have the bravery, you know what to do on how to fix this paranormal situation. But this is a guy who not only did something pretty evil, right? I'm not someone who hates all capitalists, who hates all businessmen at all, but shutting down an orphanage, right? Shutting down an orphanage is, listen, I'm not on Rand either, or however you say your name. I don't believe in profit over everything. He does that. He, through his business dealings, shuts down an orphanage just so he can make some extra money. He didn't really need the extra money. He just wanted it. And now him and his family are being plagued by these spirits. Would you help that man? Would someone who does an evil thing and then is tormented by the consequence of that, right? This wasn't some random ghost. It wasn't Slimer outside his living room window. It was some sort of cat creature. Would you help him out? It's a really interesting question when you step back and look at it, because when I saw this get posted, the first thing I did was save it, because I knew this wasn't going to be up for more than an hour, and I was right. Within an hour, the post was pulled down, and he was banned from Reddit. I knew it was coming. He's asking for help. Hey, what was this thing? People calling him an evil person, which is fair. I get that, right? But does that mean they don't deserve our paranormal help? I, being me, the guy who's being haunted by the guy who rapes and murders the woman and is being haunted by her spirit, I would not help him. I would not help him. I may try to help her. That would be kind of the middle ground, because obviously that's kind of why I stopped that example, because I kind of had a concrete answer for that one. I would go to her, try to make contact with her, and I'm not that skilled at any of this, but again, in this hypothetical, we're all like perfect mediums and exorcists and stuff like that. What does she want? Is she haunted to him? Is she stuck to him and she can't move on? Then I would help her move on and, in effect, end up helping him. I wouldn't be there to help him. But if I show up and I make contact with her and she's like, oh, no, I can go to paradise anytime I want. There's a door right behind me. I can fly up and spend the rest of eternity in heaven, but I want to be here. I want to torment this guy for what he did. Then I would go, hey, go nuts, and leave him be. That's kind of the difference of that scenario. I wouldn't say I'm not going to help at all, because I would wonder if that woman's spirit wanted to move on, but was attached to him because of that horrible final night of her life. The business owner, I think, is a more interesting scenario, because obviously getting orphans kicked onto the streets, horrible, and shutting it down all for the sake of money. But is that doing that worth a lifetime, possible lifetime of horrific hauntings? And it's not just affecting him, but the kids as well. It's affecting the whole family. Would I help them out? That one is a little trickier for me to think about, and I'm curious as to what you guys would say as well. What would you guys do in that situation? It's an interesting question. This guy did throw a cat into the water. That was very cruel. I mean, in his mind, he could have thought, because we can't even ask him what was going through his mind. What was his defense? And then if he's haunted by this thing, he only saw it once. Again, it's not like a reoccurring thing. Or is it? Is this thing constantly watching him still? There definitely would have some sort of negative karmic effect from doing what he did, specifically in that example. If Grandpa makes you do it, then you got no choice, really. But in this situation, he had choices. He did it anyways. Is this some sort of karmic debt he needs to pay? Is this something that he needs to... And he wasn't even asked to be saved. He goes, does anyone know what this thing could be? And even in the world of the paranormal, listen, I could say, listen, you're a monster, but here are my theories of what this thing could be. But that debate was completely shut down. We're not going to have enough time to do the ghost butthole story. Although it is interesting. I mean, I guess I could just cut to the ending. I could just cut to the ending on that one. We have about 13 minutes left raw of this episode. When edited down, we'll see what it is. Let's try to get it in here. Let's try to fit into this guy's butthole for this last story. Brian Blackwood, I'm going to go ahead and toss you the keys of the world. Famous Carpenter Copter, we're leaving behind the sea. Would you help the guy? Would you help at least answer his question if he knew what the answer was? Would you help him research it? Would you help a horrible man fix his paranormal fate? Interesting question. Brian, we're leaving behind the seawall. Why don't you fly us all the way out to a forest? It's actually funny. I don't have a lot of time to tell this story, but I don't think it requires a lot of buildup. We can just jump to the ending. Again, this is a question of, what do we do with this type of event? What do we do with this type of participant? We're about to meet a young boy. I didn't know these stories were related in age. We're about to meet a young boy. Oh, great. I named him Phil as well. I just typed it in my notes a while back. Let's call this guy Joey. Joey is 12 years old. And when he was 12 years old, in his neighborhood, there was a wooded area behind all the houses. And he would go out there and walk, like many children do, out and explore. One day he ran into a girl. He goes, she looked like she was between the ages of 6 and 8. So younger than so I'm going to keep calling him Philip. So younger than Joey. And when he sees her, he meets her, right? They get to talking. He said, at the time I assumed that she was a dryad, like a forest nymph. You're like, that's interesting. You meet a random girl in the middle of the woods, do you automatically assume she's some sort of spirit? Probably not. Most of us don't go out jogging and, a woman jogs past us and we go, it's one of those dryads. No, it's just a woman jogging who happened to be jogging past you in the forest. That should give you a little idea of Joey's mental state. But it's also possible, he doesn't go into a lot of detail, so it's also possible she was floating off the ground. She was translucent. He just goes, I met this little girl in the woods. When I was 12, I assumed she was a dryad. We talked a bit, and after we talked a bit, I started having these reoccurring nightmares. In the dream, Joey would wake up and he'd go to the bathroom. When he would open the bathroom door, he would see the girl standing there in the bathroom. The same girl he'd met out in the forest. The second he opens the door and sees her, he becomes paralyzed and begins to lose control of his body. It's kind of the same thing, but not really. He becomes paralyzed, but then slowly starts to slink down onto the ground, like a candle melting under the heat. And then he'd wake up. This went on for quite a long time. It went on for quite a few years. But somewhere between 12 and 23, the nightmares do stop. He just figures, well, that was just a weird encounter. I must have ran into a dryad in the woods, and she followed me home mentally. And the nightmares haven't been there for a while. This reoccurring dream hasn't played out for a couple years. Joey's 23 now, and he decides for the first time to smoke a little bit of the ganja. The weed, the dope. Take a toke of the dope, he said. Oh, yeah, that's some good green stuff. Have you ever smoked weed, Jason? Or have you just watched some weird stoner comedies? Well, both. But not anymore. I don't use marijuana anymore. I don't use any drugs, except nicotine and caffeine. Not because I'm morally righteous. It's just because my grasp of reality is so tenuous, that's always the word I use, that anything that makes me start to question if that was that real that I just saw? I don't like that no more. But, I used to smoke the green stuff, and you sound like a leprechaun. You sound like a Jamaican leprechaun. Smoking the ganja. Anyways, Joey's sitting here. He's getting high for the first time. Oh, actually, he wasn't even smoking. It was an edible. That's the worst first time to have. You're like, here, let's eat this brownie that was designed for Cheech and or Chong. Edibles are always the strongest. They're always melt your brain. A long time ago, I remember this was probably the last time I had an edible. It was over a decade ago, and I ended up taking a bath with all my clothes on. So, stuff like that. I don't like doing stuff like that. I think it's funny now when I look back on it, but at the time, I was in the bathtub, and I was like, full jeans, shoes. I was just sitting in the bathtub, full of water, and I was like, how do I get out of this? My clothes are so heavy, I'm trying to get out. Oh, it was horrible. Horrible. I hate getting stoned. That's why I haven't done it so long. I like to know, if I see an elf crawl out of my fridge, then I go, oh, that's real. I know I'm not, you could be having a mental breakdown, it could be having a seizure, but, I won't go, oh, I wonder if that's the ganja that's making me see the elf. I wonder if the DMT is causing me to think aliens are invading. I want to know that aliens are actually invading so I can fight back. But anyways, this dude's eating an edible for the first time, and lo and behold, this opens his mind back up to the spirit. He said about a month after starting to experiment with marijuana, I woke up and I was paralyzed in bed. This was not a dream. I was awake, I was paralyzed in bed, and the girl is floating above him. He said she had aged as well. 11 years has passed since this initial encounter. And he goes, now I'm looking at what I can assume is a 19-year-old woman. It's the same girl, but she is also aged as well. He's paralyzed in bed. She's floating above him. And he goes, her head was shaking hella fast. Like, having a seizure, ghost seizure. He's all trying to put a wallet in her mouth. It's going through her head because she's a ghost. He said, yeah, probably shouldn't have started using drugs because apparently that has caused her to come back into my life. And now she just shows up all the time. It's not just I have a dream about her. She'll show up in the waking world. He also says he started to experience poltergeist-like activity in his residence, things moving around, stuff floating, smashing to the ground. He figures that's the girl as well. He starts doing this stuff called Syrian Rue, which is a hallucinogenic. It's a hallucinogenic. You're probably not the best thing to be doing when you're, again, he's seen ghosts. He's seen a ghost girl that he met 11 years ago who was trapped in the realm of dreams. now is just in his house, and he's like, you know what will help? A hallucinogenic 99% of the world's population has never heard of before. He starts taking Syrian rue, and he goes, now I can communicate with her. He does this thing called like the mind thought communication, and he's just talking to her in his head, and he's like, hey, why are you visiting me? Why are you here? And he's talking to her, but she always has one message for him. Quit using drugs. Don't do drugs. They're bad for you. They're bad for your soul. Stop using drugs. He goes, she's become very dismissive, a little rude. She is a spirit from beyond the realm. I don't think they have, like, etiquette classes over there. They don't teach tact at the academy on the other side. But, yeah, he says she's kind of been a bit of a bitch lately. Telling me to stop using drugs, but I love using drugs, so I'm not going to stop using drugs. He posted this online. He posted this on the X-Board, actually, a while back. And, you know, the X-Board, they're a little more giving advice to this guy. I mean, of course, he didn't kill a cat. But he definitely is, you know, experienced something quite odd. And he's saying, I have to do drugs because they're fun, but she tells me not to do drugs. What do you guys think? And it was interesting because, so he wrote this whole narrative up, right? Pretty much as I read it to you. And you go, I could totally see that happening. He encounters a spirit. It just randomly, that happens. It follows him home or it attaches to his subconscious. Again, that happens. We've covered stories like that dozens of times on this show. Dozens and dozens of times on this show. The idea of the ghost aging with him is more unique, but we've covered that before as well. I always find that super intriguing. Ghost may not be the right word. This may be some sort of spirit. But what's interesting is if it was a nature spirit or a dryad, the thing would probably be, you know, thousands of years old. But it's possible they have a life cycle. It's possible that you have younger dryads that age. Ghosts can very rarely, but we have covered stories. I'll see if I can find some for the show notes where a ghost ages along with the humans in the household. The fact that he started using drugs and it opened up a doorway in his brain, and the brain opened up a doorway into the real world, that is very fascinating as well. All of this stuff kind of does check boxes of things we know can happen in the spirit world. Not saying it's boring or generic, but it's things that we can kind of verify through other stories. You're reading this and you're like, that's pretty interesting. And I kind of feel bad for the guy. He obviously has... I mean, listen, I'm not super anti-drug either. I'm not obviously a huge fan of like crack cocaine or anything like that, methamphetamines. I do draw a line, but you have to say there is something very unique about, it's not unique actually, it seems to be quite common. Someone has an edible, a marijuana edible, and then a couple months later is taking Syrian rue. Right? That's someone who's self-medicating. That's what it sounds like, right? He's just blowing through these. People do responsibly use alcohol and marijuana. Some people responsibly use cocaine. You know, I'm not interested in that stuff. Some people must responsibly use Molly. I used to hang out with some girls that would take ecstasy all the time. I mean, their brains were fried. Their brains were fried. Sure, they were pretty dumb, but okay, maybe that's a bad example. It was a lot of fun hanging out with them. They weren't like stupid. They were just not as smart as you think they could be because they were doing Molly once or twice a month. They'd go out to these parties and stuff like that. Actually, I think my friend was doing a little more than that, but my point is she's fine now. She's a mom. She got off all that stuff. Her IQ's returned to normal. My point is that there's a difference between enjoying something recreationally and self-medicating. And I think that's where this guy's at, right? He's really just speed running these drugs. All of this kind of comes down to this. He's talking about this ghost girl, and people are giving him legit advice. Like, why don't you talk to her? Why don't you try to, like, figure out where she's from, who she is? Because obviously, she's bugging you. So have some sort of communication with her. I know she keeps saying you need to stop doing drugs, so that's probably good advice, but communicate with her. People were responding to him like that. And then he drops the bombshell, which is really interesting. Obviously, I kind of gave it away in the intro. But then he drops the bombshell, and people are, at this point, people go, oh, wait, no, sorry, you're just crazy. But is he? People are giving him legit advice for the story he posted that I just told you, but then he responds, you guys don't understand. She keeps sticking her finger up my butthole. People are like, what? He's like, yes, this dryad who I met when she was 6 and now she's 19, so it's totally fine and not creepy at all. She'll stick her finger up my butthole. She does it all the time. I can feel her finger in there wiggling around. And she's doing it to me. And I'm afraid she wants to have butt sex with me. But, I mean, not me on top, her on top. But I thought that she was a girl, but what if she's not a girl? What if it's actually a dude pretending to be a girl? So if I agree to have butt sex with this girl, it turns into a dude and has sex with me. It's so funny, because the X board, listen, they've seen a lot over the years. They'll discuss a lot of topics. Even they were completely thrown for a loop by this. They're like, wait, what? What? So, and then the debate came, well, yeah, I mean, I guess a male demon or whatever could appear as a little girl. That totally makes sense. Or a full-grown girl, for this matter. But why? Why would they spend so much time and resources? Why would a demon be like, stop doing drugs, man, you're gonna ruin your life? And then also stick his finger up your butthole disguised as a girl and sticking her finger up your butthole. And we don't have the answers to any of this stuff, right? He just kind of stopped posting at a certain point. Yeah, he goes, I can feel her walking around my pineal gland. Which would make sense if that, remember, she started off just in his head. And then she comes out what is basically the third eye. And now has entered the real world. Putting a finger up your butthole, real. Right? This isn't your imagination. You can actually feel a finger up there wiggling around. Now, we've talked on a couple episodes about how tight my butthole is. I do not have to worry about that. I have the world's tightest butthole. I'm about to call up Guinness World Records and have them come out with like a millimeter ruler. I'm like, do you have something smaller than that? Can you bring out an electron microscope? I don't have to worry about any ghost girl sticking her finger up my butt or a ghost man. I was like, but if a ghost man would like to. No ghost fingers up my butt. No real fingers up my butt. I don't think you'd ever get it back. I think it's like a black hole. Your finger would, to an outside observer, it looked like the finger was just constantly lingering outside my butthole. While in fact it had been turned into spaghetti. Crushed by the pressure. No, that would be uncomfortable, right? I mean, here's the thing. The ghost story definitely takes a turn when you start to think, this guy's being tormented by this thing. Yeah, you're telling me to get off drugs. That's good advice. But do you have to stick your finger up my butthole while you're telling me? They didn't do that at Dare. So how do you, again, like this is a story that when you first look at it, you go, this actually does have all of these markers of a ghost story, of a spiritual attachment. Some of them are more rare than others, but it's nothing truly unusual. But when you get to the finger up the butthole, it really does make you stop and go, is this guy having a mental health issue or is this a true spiritual issue? And it's possible that it's both. I think more often than not, it's both. You can have people who are mentally struggling with their health also be attacked by ghosts and also have demons attach themselves to them. In fact, they make the perfect host because people already think they're crazy. But how do you talk to somebody? Because you have to navigate that, right? You don't want to feed into the mental delusion, but you do want to find out if there's really something attached to him. And his fear, he says, I'm afraid I'm going to get raped by her. I'm afraid that this ghost girl, whether it's a girl or a man, he doesn't care. He goes, I don't want to get raped by anybody, which is a fair statement to make. That's not controversial at all. I think anyone could say that. But my point is that he goes, he does not want this spirit here. He does not want her there. She's completely unwelcome. What's interesting is I feel she's almost giving him the way out, saying, stop doing drugs. You won't be able to see me. You won't be able to feel me. Quit doing drugs. It's a very interesting story because, again, is this a malicious spirit who wants to ruin his life? Or is it a spirit who actually has a bit of a conscience? It's not a good spirit or a bad spirit. It's kind of a normal. If you knew a dude who was doing a bunch of Syrian rue, you don't have to be, Chuck Boring Man. You don't have to be the most, what's that word called? Pious person to say, I don't think you should be doing hardcore hallucinogens, bro. I don't think you should be doing hallucinogens that people have to look up on Wikipedia because they've never heard of before. That doesn't mean you're some sort of dork. That just means you're probably concerned about someone doing hallucinogens. You know, she could be a forest dryad who was attached to him and then kind of flittered away, but when he started doing drugs, she was pulled back. She may feel haunted by him. I just thought about that. She may not be able to leave him until he stops doing the drugs. But it's also possible that she does want to have butt sex with this dude. And she's not fingering his butthole for no reason. Like, she's getting off on it. Which is weird, right? Because it's just the finger. I don't know how you could get off on that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't do that. I don't do that to people. But I guess there's something for everybody. I'm sure someone enjoys sticking their finger up other people's buttholes. Not mine and not me. I'll say that. But, or maybe it's all in his head. Maybe all of it's in his head. But he is having a physical sensation of something in his butthole, and he's thinking it's all part of the spiritual attack. How do you help him? How do you possibly help her? If it's a mental health thing, you get a mental health specialist. If it's a spiritual thing, is she attached to him and she wants to leave? Is she attached to him and she wants to stay? We'll never know because he just disappeared. Not literally, because you gotta be specific when you talk about the paranormal, but he just stopped posting. And at this point, anyone else who posted, we wouldn't know if it was him or someone imitating him. But fascinating story, and it was definitely a fascinating read, too. I presented it to you the same way I read it, because you're reading this account and you're like, wow, this is interesting. This guy may have something attached to him. And then the second he starts talking about the finger in his butthole, you can feel the skepticism start to crawl in. You just feel like we have a natural reaction to something that ridiculous sounding. And I didn't immediately go, well, he's faking it. But that's when I started to think, oh, there might be a mental health issue here. Because that's pretty ridiculous. Even in the world of succubi and incubi, even though we know that spirits can have sexual attractions to humans, jinn stories are notable for having a lot of sexual attraction to humans. It did come off as jarring. Fascinating story, though. A man in the throes of a mental health crisis, or a man being attacked by a world none of us truly understand. We don't know. But either way, when you go to bed tonight, you tuck yourself in and you shut off the light. Double check your butthole. Make sure nothing's in there. Sorry, honey, I gotta stay up a little late tonight. Dead Rabbit Radio told me to do some rectal cleaning. She's like, please leave. Nope, I gotta do 10 squats and see if anything pops out. Be careful. Be careful, because tonight, who knows? You may have... You're like, Jason... But be careful tonight, because although we may have had a good laugh at this episode, you're like, Jason, this episode included a horrible medical story going around, attacking your friends, no less, a cat being murdered, and this, a man possibly about to be raped by a spirit. Yes, you're right, it was a jam-packed episode full of crazy stuff. But, hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you learned that it's okay to have a little pus come out of your eyeball. Hopefully you learned that there's a horrible medical problem going around. People are having seizures in the middle of the street. Hopefully you learned that just having a finger up your butthole is not a big problem. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But, just watch your buttholes is what I'm saying. That'll be my slogan on my business card. Dead Rabbit Radio, paranormal podcast, watch your buttholes. Because you never know. You think that you're talking to a spirit. You think you're talking to a nature. You never know. You think you're talking to a ghost. You think you're talking to a nature spirit. You think you're talking to your very own guardian angel. Little do you know, the only thing you should really be guarding is the cave towards your colon. AKA the butthole. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Have a great night, guys.